Yeah, good morning all. Here class about balancing as well as we have discussed about different architectures of cloud computing. Discussed about generic architecture and we have also discussed about okay. So why we have discussed this because we need to know about the components which are involved in the cloud. Okay. So whenever we know about the components which are there in the cloud computing, it is very easy for us to understand what is happening inside paradigm. And here we are trying to discuss about the load balancer. Okay. So what is a load balancer? Already I have told you. Can anybody tell me what is a load balancer? Can anybody tell me what is a load balancer? The name itself it is indicating that it is balancing the load. Suppose, for example, if you have a cloud console like this, okay. So whenever the users are submitting, the jobs or the requests onto the cloud console. Okay. So initially, whenever the user submits this request on behalf of the cloud provider, the, already I have told you a broker policy will be there on behalf of the cloud provider. On behalf of the cloud provider, the broker policy is there. Okay. What is this broker policy? That means it is a software component which can be used to take the request from the user and submit that request to the task manager. Okay. So now it the task manager will take all these requests from the users, and this task manager have to report to the scheduler. Report to the scheduler. So now, what this scheduler can do? Scheduler will typically maps your tasks, whatever the tasks you are submitting onto this task manager. So this task manager will assign this tasks to the scheduler. Then scheduler will schedule all these requests onto the corresponding VMs. So the corresponding VMs. So here I am considering this as a data center. So typically all the VMs were sitting inside a physical machine. This is a physical host. This is a physical host. These physical hosts are number of physical hosts are there inside the data center. In this data center, inside the physical host, we have a number of VMs which were sitting in this uh, data center and as well as the physical host. Now the scheduler job is to schedule these tasks. Whatever the task will come to the scheduler, it needs to appropriately map that task to the corresponding VMs based on the size and the capacity of the task. Because if you have a huge task, so it typically depends on the criteria of the algorithm. The scheduling algorithm will take care of all those things. So whenever you have a particular typical paradigm like this, so in between the scheduler and the data center, we have another component called as resource manager. We have another component called as resource manager. What this resource manager will do? So whenever, for example, a request A comes onto the task manager have to assign the request to the scheduler, and the scheduler have to map this task A onto the corresponding VM. For example, VM name is VM1. Okay, it have to schedule that task onto this VM1 for a specific amount of time. So if suppose if you need to map like this, every particular for every particular new request, the resource manager have to provoke. Have to provoke. What is provoking? That means it is asking every time how many resources were there, how many VMs were already running, how many VMs are running their requests, how many requests were pending, how many requests were completed. All those details, everything needs to be kept in this resource manager. Kept in the resource manager. So without knowing the consent of the resource manager, the scheduler won't assign the job to this particular VMs. Now, there is another component called a load balancer. There is another component called as a load balancer, which is attached to this particular resource manager. What is this load balancer and what it will do? So that means, for example, if huge number of requests are comes onto this cloud console and to the task manager, and the scheduler have to assign the task to this corresponding VMs. So the resource manager is taking the help of the load balancer, because if your particular VMs were overloaded with tasks, for example, you have a physical machine. In this physical machine, number of VMs are 10. 10 number of VMs were there. So now, if these 10 VMs are filled with the corresponding tasks and all these VMs are got busy, so what happens is the load balancer have to identify for the next VM for another task which is coming to the next to these particular requests. So for example, if you have another request, then the resource manager have to provoke this, and if it is got overflowing, that means this is not free at that particular point of time. So the resource manager have to identify another VM in the another physical host, because then that balancing will be done by this load balancer. That balancing will be done by this load balancer. So for example, if for example, right now at a particular point of time t, this 10 number of VMs were got busy, and at time t1, one VM was got freed up. One VM was got freed up because its task was over, and 9 VMs were busy. You may use another particular task for this you may use this VM for another particular task. Like that, it will do this kind of scenarios. Who is that? You are asking some question. Or maybe, for example, if these 10 number of VMs are totally idle, they are not doing any job. So, okay, they are not doing any job. And maybe these number of VMs were not assigned with any task. So, the load balancer is taking that responsibility to assign those jobs to these free VMs, because the load was not balanced, and remaining VMs are busy. So you need to take this particular responsibility to execute these instructions on the corresponding physical machine. Like that, load balancer will detect underutilization of VMs. There are three cases. One is underutilization. That means if these VMs are freed and if those were idle and sitting like idle fellows but not doing anything, so that particular situation is called as underutilization. So for that underutilization, there are having some different mechanisms to avoid underutilization. So those things will be discussed in different algorithms. But the load balancer have to take care of three cases. One is underutilization, and second one is overutilization, or overloaded, or we can say that it is underloaded. And last one is normal case, that is balanced. Okay. So why it is, how it is balanced? Because if suppose in this particular physical machine, we have only one VM is active, which is running. Okay, and 9 VMs are one VM is active and 9 VMs are idle. But in this particular physical machine, 9 VMs are active and one VM is not active. One VM is not active and sitting idle. So now you just need to turn off these 9 VMs here because these are idle, and this one VM tasks can be migrated to this one VM, and this totally you can power off this machine. So thereby power consumption can be reduced, energy consumption can be reduced, thereby the cloud provider can be benefited. You may ask me, sir, for one particular physical machine, how much power consumption can be reduced? So in our case, in our particular organizations or at our home, there may be one particular physical machine, but in data center there are a huge number of volumes of servers are there. So that if you can switch off a particular physical machine in data center, what happens is typically we can reduce a huge number of energy consumption. So that is also a huge research in cloud computing whenever you are going for research challenges. It is a challenge also, because whenever you can switch off this physical machine, there is a huge reduction of carbon emissions can be done in terms of in terms of environment also it can be benefited because we can reduce the emissions of carbon dioxide. That can also be possible. So for that particular thing, we can call it as green computing. We are also calling it as green computing. Okay. So I think you got the term called a load balancer. And what is this load balancer? The load balancer's responsibility is to balance the load among the physical machines which were resided in data centers and balance the load among the virtual machines which were there in the physical machines. And if suppose if it is overutilized, then you should migrate the VMs to or migrate the tasks from one VM to another VM, which is there in the same physical host or maybe in the different physical host. If it is underutilized, so it can be consolidated. That means here what we have done, here one VM is active and 9 VMs are getting idle. That means one VM is active in the sense the tasks which we are running on this VM is active. So that what we are doing, we are indirectly migrating these tasks onto this particular physical host, in which one VM space is free. That means one VM is freed up here, so that we can give this active tasks to this particular VM, so that we can shut down this VM for some particular amount of time, and we have consolidated this VM into this one, and thereby consolidation of VMs can also be possible. That is in the case of underutilization. And normal, if suppose you have to be balanced, right? So that means whenever you have a huge number of physical machines in data centers and you have a huge number of virtual machines onto them, so that whenever you have huge number of virtual machines, it is your responsibility. That is means the load balancer have to be responsible. That means the load balancer means it is also an algorithm. Load balancer is also an algorithm. So it have to take the responsibility and balance the load according to the incoming request. Because the load which is coming onto the cloud console is very much dynamic. Because yeah, this back. So on Amazon Big Billion Day sale, you may have huge number of hits, but whereas when you are in a normal days, the number of hits may be very less. So that based on that, based on incoming requests onto the cloud console, you need to take a decision. You need to take a decision means the load balancer have to behave itself. So for these kind of things, we have a wide variety of load balancing algorithms are already existing in the literature, existing in this corresponding literature. So I think everybody knows about different kinds of algorithms for the load balancing. So I will write those things here. Please wait. We have one of the algorithm called as a round robin. I think you have studied about round robin algorithm in operating system. Can anybody tell me what we can do with round robin algorithm? How the round robin algorithm will behave? How the round robin algorithm will behave? Can anybody tell me? And we have another algorithm called as weighted round robin. Okay. And we have a lower latency load balancers. Okay. And we have a priority load balancer. Priority load balancer. Okay. And then finally we have overflow load balancers. Overflow load balancers. So these are the different types of load balancing algorithms which were available in the literature. So typically in round robin, what happens if suppose if you have a group of number of VMs, for example, if you have physical machines like this, okay, how generally round robin will behave? Round robin will behave automatically based on fairly equal distribution of requests onto every particular machine without having any priority. without having any priority, just like in a simple circular fashion. Okay, so one after another, or maybe randomly it will choose. Okay, it is not depends on you have to start from here. For example, you have a B, C, D like this. Okay, so it will choose randomly a particular node will be picked up, and based on that node, then the incoming requests are coming onto this node, and after this node, again it will choose another node randomly, and moreover that all these nodes were equally distributed with the incoming request. So, is that is okay for this particular cloud computing environment, because every particular node may don't have the same processing capacity. That is the first thing, and the second thing is processing capacity in the sense your particular node is having some 8 GB RAM and 1 TB hard disk, and this another node is having 16 GB RAM and 2 TB hard disk. So the incoming requests which are coming onto this console and this console is same in the round robin algorithm. So how it can be handled? For example, I have a task which is coming onto this cloud console with a huge processing capacity. That means the runtime capacity of the task is very much high. So if that is the case, so round robin will face a huge challenge, because and moreover that the tasks which were coming onto the cloud console were dynamic, and whenever the load balancer is assigning in a simple circular random fashion, it may not be appropriate for the cloud computing environment. And moreover, the traffic pattern of the cloud computing is so much dynamic. For example, if you can go for a conventional network, what happens is you have a router here and you have a router here, and the traffic pattern between these two routers were these are physical, and already these particular routers were designed specific to that particular traffic pattern, and the traffic pattern in between these two routers were static. Okay, because it is conventional. And whereas when you are going for cloud, it is not like that. Because it is physical, you know how much capacity it have. Maybe it can handle only up to 15 Mbps request. Okay, because we have to say it in terms of bandwidth, because it is a network equipped component. Okay, so if it is the case, so then how it is possible to balance all these things with this round robin fashion with a simple circular fairly distributed queue mechanism. So round robin is not, of course it will be good, but it is not appropriate. It is not appropriate. Okay, so coming to weighted round robin. So here the difference between round robin and weighted round robin is, so you will be adding some weights to some nodes. You will be adding some weights to your nodes, or you will be adding some weights to your tasks. For example, in the earlier I have told you that it is getting 1 GB of processing capacity of task. If suppose if you have 1 GB processing capacity of task, so it will take some extra time to run or extra time to execute, or it takes huge amount of time to process that particular task. So if you want to process that huge amount of task, you need to send that task to a appropriate suitable component and appropriate suitable node. So how that can be done? So you need to have some weights for that. You need to calculate some priority for that. Okay, so you will be dividing the task with some prioritized manner. So you will calculate some static or dynamic weights. You will calculate some static and dynamic weights according to the priority of the task, and according to the processing and runtime capacity of the task, and as well as the size of the task. So we will calculate the weights of this task and assign those particular tasks randomly chosen, fairly distributed random queue mechanism. Again here circular queue mechanism also, because it is also a rounded robin, but it is a weighted round robin. Okay, it is a weighted round robin. It is a weighted round robin queue, and yeah. So the next thing is we have an algorithm called lower latency. So what is this lower latency load balancing algorithm will do? So the incoming requests are coming onto the cloud console can be taken by the load balancer, and the load balancer have to check. The load balancer initially it checks the server or checks the VMs servers or VMs with low latency. It have to identify the low latency servers among all the servers which we are having in the physical machine. So based on the lower latency servers, so based on the servers with which will be having low latency, so the particular corresponding request can be forwarded to that particular server unless and until the processing capacity of the server exhausts. Okay, so this is about a lower latency load balancing algorithm. And next one is we have another algorithm called as a priority load balance. These priorities already I have told you. So here weighted round robin also calculating the priority of the task and distributing the tasks onto the load balancing or the nodes with circular fashion. But here priority load balance is strictly it will calculate the priorities of that particular task and assign the task to the corresponding node in not circular fashion, not in circular fairly distributed random fashion. It just identify that particular node and then it will assign that task to that particular corresponding node only. So you may ask me, sir, for example, I have a task with 100 GB tasks. All those were priority nodes. All those were priority tasks, and all these tasks were suitable to this one only, this particular node. Then how you can say that the load got balanced among all these machines? So for that, we have another load balancer called as overflow load balancer. Overflow load balancer. If that is the case, if your particular question is that, so automatically what happens is we will calculate the priority for the tasks, and based on the priority, the load balancing algorithm have to choose or have to take a decision out of it and have to assign the task to a corresponding node. But for example, you may ask me, sir, all the tasks were coming onto this one and remaining were not got balanced. Okay, and if suppose if those tasks were overflowed here, if those tasks were overflowed, then what we need to do? So the next task is also a prioritized task like this. Then what I need to do? So because you have a priority, like for example, if I have a priority 1, you need to choose the highest processing capacity node. And if you have a priority 2, rather than less priority compared to this one. Like that, if suppose if all the highest prioritized jobs were got placed into this node, and if suppose if the next request is also coming on to as a highest prioritized job, so then the task scheduling algorithm, or sorry, not the task scheduling, the load balancing algorithm have to choose the next prioritized node. Next prioritized node. That means next highest processing capacity node. So based on that, overflow load balancing algorithm have to work out. Okay, are you getting my point? So these are the different load balancing algorithms were existed in our syllabus, but many of the different algorithms are also there based on different parameters. But in our syllabus, only we have identified only with 5 load balancing algorithms. Okay, so what are those? First thing is round robin, and second thing is weighted round robin, and the third one is lower latency algorithm, and the fourth one is priority load balancer, and the fifth one is overflow load balancer. Overflow load balancers. Already I have told you what is what. So what is round robin? Round robin will get the tasks from the corresponding cloud console, and then it will fairly distribute all the tasks to all the nodes which were there in the network with equally distributed number of tasks randomly. Same as like in our round robin algorithm which is working in operating system. But compared to round robin, weighted round robin is different. Weighted round robin will calculate the priority of tasks, and but it will choose the fairly distributed mechanism. That means initially it have server capacity which was there in the network. For example, if you have a data center, in that data center, which server is having the lowest latency? So for that, you need to assign the jobs. So based on that, lower latency algorithm will work. And the fourth one is priority. Here, this the difference between this priority and weighted round robin is weighted round robin will calculate the priorities, but choose the random server and assign all those requests to this particular nodes which were there in the network with equally distributed mechanism. But here it is not equally distributed mechanism. You just need to assign the task to the corresponding node appropriately. That is, a suitable machine have to be identified. And the last one is workflow. If you ask me a question, for example, if all the requests were coming out of this node and we were calculating priorities, if those priorities chosen this particular node as the suitable node, if those priorities got completed and if the tasks were overflowed on this machine and if it has exhausts with the request, so automatically you need to, that means you means here, your algorithm need to choose the next highest prioritized node in the network. So like this, we can say that these particular algorithms will work for load balance. Okay. So anybody, do you have any doubts in this load balancing algorithm? Please let me know. We'll wait for 2 minutes. For example, if you have any doubts, I'll let you know. Please, if you have any doubts, please let me know. If you don't want to ask in the directly, like through voice, you can type in the chat. I can see the chat. Make it fast. Is it audible to everybody? You don't have any doubts, right? So shall I move on to the next topic? Shall I move on to the next topic? Please say yes or no. Okay, I'm moving to the next topic. That is called as a software defined networking. Software defined networking. Okay. So what is this software defined networking and why we need to use this software defined networking? So simply in simple way we can call it SDN. Okay. These are called as SDNs. What is an SDN and why we need to use this? That is the first thing we need to know. So before going to let you know about what is software defined networking, I need to let you know about, I think, do you know about network infrastructure architectures conventionally in the on-premises environments? The on-premises environments in the sense like our college network, and if you have office networking infrastructure is there. Like you have some network devices. You have your network devices. Like what are the network devices? We have switches, routers, okay, modems. All these are network infrastructure devices. Okay. So for example, if you can ask me, in our college, for example, in our college, we have in our society, for example, in Vishnu society, we have like SVCW, right? We have SVCW, VAT, pharmacy, dental, and we have polytechnic, and we have admin department, and we have degree college. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So for example, in our particular environment, we have in our particular organization, we have 7 institutes, and each and every institute will be using some different kinds of network devices. Okay. Fortunately, unfortunately, we are using the same type of devices because our particular environment will be connected to a single server room because which is there in our C block. The entire network infrastructure over the society is connected to a single server room. Single server means servers are different, but we are using the same network equipment because our network manager is only our Durga Rao. Okay. So he is the admin for all the society. But whenever you are going for a corporate company, so this corporate company may lies at different parts of the world, different parts of the world, and each corporate company may involve with different types of projects, different types of projects. And moreover that nowadays every particular modems and routers and switches, I think you know about switches, not your fan switches and all these things. We have switches which were connecting your cables from your machine to your hub racks which were there in the labs. I think you know about this. So it is quite a bit difficult because different switches, different routers and different modems may be used in different companies. Okay, for example, you are working for a particular company and your company is located in Hyderabad and another part of your company is located in US. Okay, so the equipment of the network infrastructure used in Hyderabad is totally different from US. Am I right or wrong? Okay, so now whenever you are sending some data from Hyderabad to US or US to Hyderabad, so those should be compatible with each other. And moreover that this Hyderabad company will interact with USA for not only for a single project, they are having their own different projects. So if suppose now nowadays whenever you are having some if you can consider big data, if you can consider big data, your data have to be processed parallelly. Your data have to be processed parallelly. What is parallelly? That means parallel computation have to be done. Okay, and moreover that you are saying that big data, huge volumes of data arises, and if suppose if you want to process this data parallelly, a necessary computing infrastructure have to be equipped in your organization. If suppose if necessary infrastructure have to be equipped in your organization means for that also you need require of network. Network infrastructure is a mandatory thing. So now, what you are trying to say, sir? What you are trying to say? What I am trying to say is complex. Whenever you are going for conventional network infrastructure, whatever you can say, you have a conventional network infrastructure. I am not talking about computing infrastructure. Up to now, we have talked about like a computing infrastructure, like CPU, RAM, hard disk, processing. I am not talking about that. Computing infrastructure, if it needs to work out and if it needs to connect to the cloud, you need to have a typical network. Am I right or wrong? You need an internet, right? If you need an internet, it should be connected to a network. So that network infrastructure is also to be easily, flexibly, and it should be scalable because a huge number of virtual servers are running over the physical infrastructure. And moreover that every particular virtual machine is also having your virtual LAN and virtual network infrastructure is also there. So how you can manage all these things with your proprietary, that means every particular network routers, switches, and your network equipment, these are all proprietary things. For example, if you can look at Cisco, Cisco is having their own routers, own switches, own network equipment. And Cisco doesn't support some other particular network infrastructure. For example, I have a Netgear infrastructure. Netgear follows some different mechanism. Okay. And these protocols are different from these protocols. And these are not open source. Okay. For example, if you can go for a cloud environment, for example, if you can go for a cloud environment, the underlying network infrastructure is very much important. Without having network, how you can connect to the cloud? That is the first thing. And the second thing is, if you can use different number of Cisco routers for a particular organization. Okay, another client who wants to interact with you, who is sending the data with some Netgear infrastructure. So the protocols with which the Cisco is working is different from Netgear. Then there is a collision. That means the network infrastructure is allowing you to send the corresponding packet. So that, and moreover that, the main problem with this the proprietary infrastructure of the network components is that it is having their own protocols and they are not collaborating. That means they are not supporting for interoperability. Interoperability. for some particular reasons, like because they are having their own issues, they are having their own proprietary protocols and all those things. Interoperability means if you have a component and if you have a B component, A is having their own set of interfaces and they are having their own set of APIs and they are having their own set of protocols, and B is also like that. Intra in the sense within A, but I am talking about interoperability. When you are working on a platform A and B, they are having their own network infrastructure. So if they want to collaborate with each other, but their network infrastructure is not supporting that communication, so how you can manage? Okay, and for example, if I have a data center, for example, if I have a data center like DC, named as DC, and you have a number of physical hosts on top of this network infrastructure in data center. In this physical host, I have huge number of virtual machines pumping on this network infrastructure. So how many routers I have to install? How many routers I have to install? And how the network manager will think? So how I need to manage all these routers? Are you getting my point? How I need to manage all these routers? Okay. So for example, in AWS data center, for example, you have 1 lakh number of VMs. For example, this is a small number actually. So for example, for 1 lakh VMs, if I want to create or if I want to purchase a routers, 1 lakh routers, if I want to purchase, it's a huge investment. And moreover that, it is a huge overhead for data center people or the network manager, because for every particular connection, if I want to use a router which is equipped in the data center, it is very difficult job for me, because those are all the virtual infrastructure. For every particular infrastructure virtually which is running on the physical machine, if I want to install a router, it is very difficult for me. So if you want to go on demand, for example, if I create a virtual connection or if I have created a virtual machine on top of a physical machine, and if your network is supporting seamlessly in the sense flexibly, seamlessly, and your network is scalable. Scalable means, for example, right now today at 11:40, I got 1 crore customers or 10 lakh customers were joined in my network, or 10 lakh customers were there in AWS. Right now they have joined. So now, if suppose for this 10 lakhs customers, if I want to purchase a new Cisco router or a new Netgear router, that doesn't work out. That means what I want to tell you is that in network infrastructure, in conventional network infrastructure, what happens is it is very difficult for decoupling. It is difficult. It is very difficult for decoupling. It is very difficult for decoupling the network plane from the control plane. Sorry, not for the network plane. Okay. It is very difficult for decoupling the control plane from data plane. I will tell you what is control plane and what is data plane. Okay, these are being coupled. These are being coupled. These are being coupled in network. That is a conventional network. Conventional network infrastructure. So how you can say that they are coupled? Have you seen that? Yes, of course. If you can look at conventional network infrastructure, there are 3 layers. The first layer is your specialized hardware. So this is also one of the disadvantages for conventional network infrastructure, specialized hardware. And we have a network operating system. So what is this network operating system? I will tell you. And these are all network applications. Okay. So like this, every particular component will be there. For example, it is for a router, for example. For a router, it will be like this. And for a switch like this. Or maybe like this, how many number of switches and how many number of routers are there in a network, which is in a corporate network. So you may ask me, what is the specialized hardware, sir? Because you are a Cisco router, for example. You are a Cisco router. Cisco will use some specialized hardware components for their manufacturing routers. and Netgear is using some specialized hardware for their particular manufacture, and every particular router will use a firmware. I can typically tell you it is a firmware. Firmware means the interface through which that particular router will be accessible for the network managers. Okay, so that is called as a firmware or network operating system. We can call it as a network operating system because it will be acting as a interface between like this. Whatever you will tell the definition. If you have a specialized, if you have a hardware component is the corresponding network equipment, you have an application which is running on this specialized hardware. So you have to interact with this network hardware from your application. That can be done only through network operating system. So now, can you see here what is this control plane? Control plane indicates, control plane tells us that how to flow the data, or maybe, sorry, not data, flow and routing of packets, flow and routing of packets, okay, and signaling. All these things will be taken care of through control plane. Control plane typically does these three things. What are those? Flow of packets, routing of packets. So which particular router I need to send this particular packet, and signaling. Signaling in the sense, you know about how much signaling is useful for particular routing network infrastructure. And what is data plane doing? Data plane will typically send the payload of transformation of data. Payload transformation or payload transportation. What is payload transportation? So what is payload? Whatever the message you are sending to the corresponding other router, maybe to the destination, that particular packet is called as a payload. Okay. So these things will be coupled in conventional network infrastructure architecture. But okay, here the underlying infrastructure is being a hurdle for the control plane from the coupling from the data plane, because for every particular machine or for every particular equipment, the hardware should be in a uniform way. That means every particular application, every particular network application can use that particular infrastructure in a seamless way whenever it is to be worked in a seamless way. So that means if you have an interface, that is your control plane, okay, that being decoupled from your network infrastructure, that means your hardware. So these particular network applications which are running on this control plane are abstracted or decoupled, because these are not relevant to network infrastructure architecture. If it is whatever the application you choose, that should support by the corresponding network infrastructure architecture in SDN. But whereas in conventional network architecture, for this application, one network specialized hardware is needed. For another application, another specialized hardware is there. For another application, you need to install another specialized hardware. Then it will be a difficult for network manager to install a specific requirement for every particular application. Now, what we need to do, you need to use the common hardware, common, not specialized. It's a simplified hardware you need to use for every particular application, which is being running on that network operating system. That means what we need to do, here it was got coupled. Coupled means that network applications and specialized hardware were coupled with each other and then conventional network infrastructure architecture. But what I need to do, I need to decouple them. How we need to decouple them? That means the control plane have to be decoupled from the data plane. Then only it is possible to run the network applications with SDNs. SDN. The name itself it is indicating software defined networking. That means you just have some normal hardware computational or normal hardware network infrastructure facilities uh, in your data center. On top of it, you have a network centralized controller, which is an important thing, which is a centralized network controller should be there. On top of it, your network applications will goes on running. So how all these things will be interacting with each other? They are having their own APIs. Those APIs are open source and they are applicable for every particular environment, irrespective of your specialized hardware, irrespective of your network application, irrespective of your specialized hardware. So those things we will discuss tomorrow. Okay. So what kind of SDN architecture is required, and so what are the limitations in this conventional architecture is the first thing is limited scalability. Already I have told you what is limited scalability. Limited scalability means, for example, if I want thousand VM instances are to be spinned up right now. So if these 1000 VM instances are running with conventional network infrastructure, it is not easy for them to easily spin up these instances with specialized hardware machines because it requires a lot of installation, lot of configuration changes. But whenever you are going for virtual, it is not like that. It is just minimal installation procedure and maximized automation can be done with virtualization and as well as software defined networking. So this is the major drawback of conventional network infrastructure architecture. And the next drawback is complex network devices. Already I have told you. So every particular network infrastructure devices, they are having their own proprietary APIs, proprietary distributed protocols to interact with other network applications. So some of them were supported for interoperability and some of them were not supported for interoperability. So what you need to do? You need to define again a new protocols for that. So how you need to write for every particular application, if you want to write a new protocol, it is a challenging task for us. So they cannot manage all these things. So that this is also one of the major disadvantages, complex network device. And we have management overhead. Already I have told you what is management overhead. If suppose if you have a huge number of users were joined in your cloud environment, if you want to give the access to them, you need to have a automated, simplified networking setup. Okay, the network manager should not feel it is like a burden. They have to give the network access to the particular people who are using your cloud environment. So they have to access it in a very easiest way by accessing that particular cloud console. So if you want to avoid that, so you need to go for a software defined network. That is possible only in this SDN. Okay. Tomorrow we'll discuss about SDN architecture and what are the advantages of SDN architecture in detail. Okay. So if you have any doubts, please let me know. Otherwise, I will close the session.